You think you're reading people through what they say, their words, their stories, their carefully crafted explanations, but you're missing everything that matters. The truth about someone isn't in their mouth, it's in their hands. Watch what they do when they think nobody's paying attention. Watch the small, repetitive actions they can't stop themselves from doing. Those habits? They're confessions written in behavior, exposing psychology they don't even know they have. Behavioral psychology has spent decades mapping these patterns. The mundane routines people dismiss as meaningless quirks are actually windows into anxiety levels, control needs, trauma responses, and personality structures. Your daily habits aren't random, they're symptoms. And once you know how to read them, you can't unsee what people are quietly screaming through their actions. In this video, I'm breaking down 4 specific habits that reveal psychological truths most people spend their whole lives hiding. Not broad generalizations, precise behavioral markers backed by research. This isn't party trick psychology. This is the real code to understanding what's actually happening inside someone's head. Watch closely. You might recognize yourself. Habit 1. If someone keeps washing their hands repeatedly, watch someone at a sink. Not the quick rinse before dinner, the other thing. The scrubbing that goes on too long, the soap applied twice, the drying that becomes its own ritual. They're not cleaning their hands, they're trying to clean something else entirely. Clinical psychology has a term for this: contamination anxiety. But that sterile label misses the human reality underneath. People who wash their hands excessively aren't worried about germs in the way you think. They're trying to wash away feelings, shame, guilt, a sense of wrongness they can't articulate but can't escape. Research from the Yale School of Medicine found that repetitive hand-washing correlates strongly with intrusive thoughts and moral anxiety. The person scrubbing their hands until they're raw? They're not germophobic. They're carrying psychological weight that manifests as physical uncleanliness. Their brain has created an equation: inner contamination equals outer contamination. So they wash. Again and again. The behavior reveals perfectionism taken to a breaking point. These individuals hold themselves to impossible standards, and when they inevitably fail, because everyone fails, they can't process it normally. The mistake feels like corruption. The error feels like rot. So they clean the only thing they can control: their skin. Notice when it happens: after they've said something they regret, after a difficult conversation, after making a decision they're unsure about. The washing isn't random. It's a response to internal distress. Their hands become the battleground where they fight invisible enemies. But here's what most people miss. This habit signals high conscientiousness combined with anxiety. These aren't careless people. They're individuals who care too much, feel too deeply, hold themselves too accountable. The washing is what happens when that conscientiousness has no healthy outlet, when the need for control meets situations they can't control. The tragic part? The relief is temporary. They wash, feel clean for moments, then the feeling returns. So they wash again. The cycle feeds itself because the real contamination isn't on their hands, it's in their thoughts. And thoughts don't respond to soap. You want to understand someone who does this? Look at what they're trying to be perfect about. Look at where they've failed their own standards. Look at what shame they're carrying that nobody else can see. Their hands are just the symptom. The cause runs deeper than skin. Habit 2. If someone checks the door over and over, from washing away internal discomfort, checking behaviors reveal something equally profound: a person living in constant negotiation with catastrophe. The door is locked. They know it's locked. They turned the handle 30 seconds ago and felt the resistance, but they're walking back to check again. Not because they forgot, because their brain won't accept certainty. Obsessive-compulsive research identifies this as a checking compulsion, but the mechanism underneath is pure anxiety architecture. The person checking the door repeatedly lives in a world where disaster is always one mistake away. They've learned, through experience or wiring or trauma, that bad things happen when you're not vigilant enough. So they check. Because not checking means accepting risk, and accepting risk feels like inviting catastrophe. This behavior exposes a fundamental inability to trust their own perception. They saw the lock engage. They heard the click. They felt the door resist when they pulled. But none of that evidence convinces the part of their brain screaming that something could still be wrong. So they go back. Verify. Test reality against anxiety. Watch what else they check. The stove. The windows. Their phone for messages they know aren't there. The pattern spreads across their life like cracks in glass. Because the door isn't really about the door, it's about the terror of being responsible for something terrible. If the house burns down because the stove was on, if someone breaks in because the door was unlocked, if disaster strikes because they weren't careful enough, that would confirm their deepest fear. That they're not competent enough to handle basic life. These individuals carry enormous responsibility on their shoulders, whether real or imagined. They're often the reliable ones, the ones others depend on, the ones who never drop the ball. But that reliability comes at a cost. The weight of never making mistakes creates a hypervigilance that won't turn off. Their brain is a security system stuck in high alert, finding threats in doorknobs. The checking reveals perfectionism too, but a different flavor than the hand-washing. This isn't moral perfectionism. It's functional perfectionism. The need to have everything secured, everything managed, everything under control. Because control is the only thing standing between them and chaos. And here's the painful irony. The more they check, the less they trust themselves. Each return to the door reinforces the message that their initial check wasn't good enough. They're training their brain not to believe its own inputs. The compulsion that feels like safety is actually eroding the foundation of self-trust they desperately need. You see this person? You're seeing someone who's been hurt by unpredictability. Someone who learned that bad things happen suddenly. Someone who now lives like a guard at the gate of their own life. Never sleeping. Never certain. Always scanning for the threat they know is coming because it came before. The door is just where that vigilance becomes visible. Habit 3. If someone counts money more than once. After checking doors against imagined disasters, counting money reveals a different psychological landscape. Scarcity thinking embedded so deep, it's become reflex. They count the bills. Then they count again. Maybe a third time. Not because they can't add, because somewhere in their history, money disappeared when they weren't paying attention. And that lesson carved itself into their nervous system. Behavioral economics research shows that people who recount money repeatedly often come from backgrounds where financial security was unstable. But it's more textured than simple poverty. It's the experience of having something and losing it. Of thinking you were safe and discovering you weren't. Of learning that money requires constant surveillance because it's always trying to escape. This habit exposes anxiety about resources that goes beyond the current moment. They might have plenty now. The bank account might be fine, but their hands don't believe it. Their fingers need the tactile confirmation that yes, this is real, this is here, this hasn't vanished like it did before. Watch who does this. Often it's people who've clawed their way up from nothing, who remember being broke with the kind of clarity that never fades, who learned that financial carelessness gets punished immediately and brutally. So they count, because counting is control, and control is survival. But notice the other side. These people also tend to know exactly where their money goes. They're not reckless. They're not impulsive buyers. The same vigilance that makes them count twice makes them careful with spending. That scarcity thinking, while anxious, also creates discipline that wealth-blind people never develop. The recounting reveals something else, a relationship with material security that's become adversarial. They don't trust money to stay. They treat currency like something alive and malicious, always looking for opportunities to disappear. That's not paranoia. That's learned experience talking. These individuals often struggle with enjoying what they have. Because enjoyment requires letting your guard down, and letting your guard down is how you lose things. So they count. They verify. They maintain constant awareness of their resources because unconscious consumption feels dangerous. The money becomes a stand-in for security itself. Each recount is a ritual that says, I'm okay right now. I have enough right now. I can handle what comes next. The numbers aren't just figures, they're evidence against the fear that everything could collapse again. And here's what separates this from obsessive checking. Money counters are usually right to be careful. Financial catastrophe is real. Resources do run out. Their vigilance isn't unfounded, it's just exhausting. They're playing defense against a threat that actually exists, unlike the door checker's imagined break-ins. You meet someone who recounts their cash? You're meeting someone who learned the hard way that security is temporary and must be constantly verified. Their relationship with money isn't healthy, but it's honest. They know something that people born comfortable never learn, that everything you have can disappear faster than you think possible. The counting is how they make sure today isn't that day. Habit 4. If someone sleeps without clothes at night. From the vigilant counting of resources, sleeping naked reveals something that seems opposite but connects perfectly. Radical vulnerability as a sign of psychological security. Most people wear something to bed. Pajamas, underwear, a t-shirt, some barrier between their body and the sheets. But some people strip down completely, and that choice, that specific form of vulnerability, exposes a personality structure that psychological research has only recently started mapping properly. Studies in sleep psychology and behavioral traits show that people who sleep naked consistently score higher on measures of body confidence and lower on measures of social anxiety. But it's not vanity. It's comfort with fundamental vulnerability. They've made peace with their physical form in ways that many people never achieve. This behavior signals secure attachment patterns. Think about what sleeping naked requires. You have to be comfortable with the possibility of emergency. Fire alarm at 3 a.m. You're running outside in whatever you can grab. Medical emergency? Paramedics might see you. The person sleeping without clothes has made a calculation. Comfort outweighs the social risk of potential exposure. That risk tolerance extends beyond the bedroom. Research from personality psychology finds that naked sleepers tend to be more open to experience, less concerned with social judgment, more willing to be authentic even when it's uncomfortable. They've internalized a truth that anxious people spend lifetimes avoiding. Your body is just a body, and hiding it doesn't change what it is. The habit also reveals a specific relationship with sensory experience. Naked sleepers prioritize physical comfort over social convention. They've noticed that sleeping without clothes feels better, cooler, less restrictive, more natural, and they've chosen that sensation over the security blanket of fabric. That's not hedonism. That's someone who pays attention to their body's signals and responds accordingly. Notice who doesn't do this. People carrying shame about their bodies. People with trauma histories involving physical violation. People whose safety was compromised in vulnerable states. Sleeping naked requires feeling safe enough to be defenseless. It's an act of trust, in your environment, in yourself, in the absence of threat. But here's the layer most people miss. It also signals low inhibition around natural states. These individuals are comfortable with bodily functions, with physicality, with the animal reality of being human. They're not disgusted by sweat or worried about being gross. They've accepted that bodies are messy, functional, imperfect things that work better when you stop micromanaging them. The personality connection runs deeper. Naked sleepers often have less rigid thinking patterns overall. They question conventions, try alternative approaches. Don't just do things because that's how it's done. The willingness to ditch pajamas reflects a broader willingness to examine inherited habits and discard ones that don't serve them. This connects back to every habit we've discussed. The hand washer can't tolerate imperfection. The door checker can't tolerate uncertainty. The money counter can't tolerate financial vulnerability. But the naked sleeper? They've made peace with physical vulnerability. That's not carelessness. It's the opposite. It's such deep security that they can afford to be undefended. Psychological research on resilience shows that people comfortable with appropriate vulnerability recover faster from setbacks and build stronger relationships. Because vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the foundation of genuine connection and authentic living. The naked sleeper understands this at a somatic level. You want to know if someone's fundamentally anxious or fundamentally secure. Look at how they sleep. The person wrapped in layers, doors locked, always partially on guard, they're still fighting battles from their past. The person sleeping naked in an unlocked room, they've won those battles or never had to fight them. It's not about the clothes. It's about what the absence of clothes represents. A person who's comfortable enough in their own skin that they don't need armor, even when they're unconscious. Every habit tells a story. The hands that won't stop washing carry shame that won't stop bleeding. The person checking the door lives in a world where disaster is always one mistake away. The money counter remembers what it's like to have nothing and refuses to forget. And the naked sleeper has found something rare: peace with vulnerability itself. Your habits aren't quirks. They're confessions written in muscle memory, revealing what you really believe about yourself, the world, and what you need to do to survive in it. The question is, what are your hands telling everyone while your mouth stays quiet?